My name's Jessica Pang. I'm the Deputy Branch Lead for Wales. I'm standing in to provide a bit of an intro to the session today. It's lovely to see so many of you here, and thanks everyone for joining. Before we start, I just want to remind you of a few AphA events in the next month or so. There's a number of upcoming branch meetings and also a lunch and learn next week on the 24th at 12 with Charlotte Shearsby with an intro to data visualization session. And you can register for those via the events page. Today, we're going to continue the lunch and learn sessions with Filipe McManus of Facts and Dimensions. Filipe will be doing a repeat of this session on Wednesday, the 16th of July at 1. So you can share details with colleagues so they can hear them as well. But the session's also being recorded and will be saved in the Members Hub on our website later today. I think I've muted everyone as they come in, but we're happy for questions throughout the talk as well as at the end, should they come up. And then I'm going to hand over now to Filipe. He's the CEO of Facts and Dimensions and going to tell us a bit about the services they're offering and where that might be relevant to us. Oh, just mute you.
So, sorry, I think you can hear me now. Yeah, so thanks, Jessica. Thanks everyone for turning up today. I really appreciate it. So I'm going to, as Jessica's already said, I'm going to do an intro of what we do and also cover the SQL training that we're providing to help the Analyst X community. So you can hopefully see my screen. I've put together a little presentation. So what does my company do? We're Facts and Dimensions. We have a huge database, which I'm going to do a demo of shortly, of open data. So ODS codes, SNOMED codes, all the stuff in TRUD, all the SITREPS data, all the population figures, and all sorts of stuff outside of health, like the Office of Budget Responsibility, financial stats, weather statistics, thousands and thousands of tables of data, and we put all that in one database. So the reason we do this is because when I used to work in NHS, which I left about 12 years ago, everywhere I worked, I had to build a database myself for the team to use that had all the ODS codes and the lookup codes and population figures and waiting list stats and whatever. And then I'd move somewhere else and I'd have to do it again. And the reason for doing that, so I'm skipping ahead a bit because this is the bit I'm on. The reason I did it is fundamentally, I don't know if you find the same thing where you guys work, but whenever I was managing the database that had all of the reference data that the business intelligence team needed, if my boss needed me to do anything else, that would always take precedence every single time, right? So he could never just say to the boss, sorry, I'm busy updating the reference data. It would always be, well, just put that on hold for a minute. I need you to do this. And as a consequence, the reference data would inevitably get behind and out of date and full of data quality issues, which, as I'm sure most of you understand, would lead to informational errors in the data when us analysts are using data to create information for our management to use to make decisions and whatever. And I realized that the only way this was going to be done properly is if I did it as a business, and it was the only thing we did. So that's what we do now. So there's several people on the call that already use our service, but obviously there's several that don't. Essentially, what the customers do is they will access the data using either Microsoft Azure or Snowflake. I'm showing you on Snowflake, but you can do either. All the data's in here, so if there's any data you wanted, like a current one we're adding at the moment, which is particularly interesting, is the NHS spend data, for example. So I'll just have a look at that now. So this one has all the items of expenditure since 2010, who the supplier was, we're in there as well, by the way, how much was paid, and when it was paid, right? And as I'm sure some of you are probably aware, there is every single organization in the country has to publish this data. Every single public organization, sorry, has to publish this data every month. So every TfL do, all the departments of government do, all the hospitals do, all the councils, all the arm's length bodies like, you know, the Forestry Commission, the Gambling Commission, and it's all in there, right? So it seems it would be a waste of time if everyone was loading this data when we can just do it and then everyone access it. And then everything else you can think of is in there, ODS codes and God knows what else. And if there's a data set that someone wants that we don't already have, a customer would go on our forum and ask for it. And then because they've asked us to do it, we've added it, and then that's it. It's added for everyone to get access to. So for example, someone here asked for the Embrace data. So we'll add that, and then that will be another data set in the database for everyone to use. So that's that. So if I go back to the PDF that I had, okay. So that's an example one. So that's the purpose of it. There's no front end. There's no sort of special graphics or anything like that. It's purely just one massive database of all the data that the NHS, and ultimately we're trying to make it all government needs in one single database so that everyone can access the same data and do interjoining stuff and, you know, understand what's going on in our country. The other thing I wanted to talk about today is something I'm doing in collaboration with AnalystX and AphA and Snowflake and Key Analytics, which is providing SQL training. I'm actually partway through today's training. I've sent all my students off to lunch, and they'll be coming back after this to do the test. The way to get into that training, if you're not already aware, it's on future.nhs.uk. So if you're not already a member of future.nhs.uk, I'd recommend it. There's massive amounts of useful resources in here. And also anyone who's providing services, whether in or outside the NHS, you can, if you ask, you can generally add a page and start helping the whole community. So the page I've added is about my SQL joins course, which I've been delivering every Wednesday for the last 12 months. I developed it with one of the AnalystX newbies, and it basically just teaches these basics of SQL. So the joins, where clause, if null, is null, etc. Takes about 3 hours. And the reason I did that is there was a talk given by Ming Tang, who most of you should already know. It's the top bod of our ultimate boss, the Chief Information Officer at NHS England. She was giving a talk about a year ago, worrying about the fact that we have about 10,000 or so SQL analysts, sorry, not SQL analysts, but analysts in the NHS. And a very, very small percentage of them all actually understand SQL, right? So where I used to work, I tended to be the expert SQL person in the room, and everyone else would ask me to create the views or SQL, pull the data out of our SQL databases so that the analysts can do their work, right? And I'm sure most of you guys have or are that one of two or three people in your department that does all that work, right? Now, what Ming Tang worried about, from my memory of her talk, is those people that are experts in SQL then go on and leave the NHS because she thinks the pay isn't right to keep them, and they'll go and work for KPMG or, like me, go and start my own business or whatever like that. Nothing wrong with that, of course. But I remember thinking that the majority of NHS people just want to be able to go into work and understand how to pull data out of their database, right? So I knew I could develop a course that would probably take about 3 hours just to teach the basics, just the inner join, left join, where clause, the select statement, right? So I've been doing that, and I've taught about 200 people so far across the NHS, and I'm happy, and I want to let you guys all know about it too. It also has the added benefit of meaning that you'll get a certificate at the end, which you can use towards the National Competency Framework. Hopefully a lot of you guys already know about that. But the National Competency Framework is, well, you know how in the NHS there's a track for managers. There's a track for radiologists, nurses, obstetricians. Practically everyone in the NHS has a track, to like a career track that they can follow. And us analysts never really had one properly. I mean, we did quite a while ago, and I can't remember the name of it, but then it just sort of disappeared. But we've got this one now that's been put together by Analyst X and AphA, which is this sort of way of assessing how you're doing according to a bunch of criteria. Let me just bring up the right document for that. It's this one. The web page has changed. Right, but I don't want to spend like 5 minutes while I just search around for it. There is a document, and we'll share it afterwards, where you can assess where you are in your career path according to this criteria. And the certificate you get at the end of our course is one piece of evidence you can use towards the SQL proficiency part of the NCF. So that is one of the reasons I recommend doing my course. And of course, the reason I want people to do my course from a business perspective is it gives me an excuse to demo the database, because I use my facts and dimensions database to deliver that course. So that's really, now I realize I've got 45 minutes, and I'm conscious of the fact that unusually for people who do these things, I've gone under, but if everyone can take a screenshot of this has all the links I want you to have. You can click this one to get a free trial to all the data. If you want to contact us directly, if you want to use the data via Microsoft Azure, this link up here is the Snowflake version. This link will take us to our website. You can contact us and we'll set you up in Microsoft version. I'm on LinkedIn on here, and there's also videos demoing what we do here. So with that, is there any questions?
I'm sure there will be, but there's one question that I think is quite good basic kind of knowledge that I don't have. What is Snowflake, and what does that mean?
Yeah, good point. That's a great question, actually. Okay, so well, we all know what Microsoft SQL is, right? So Microsoft SQL, a database where you have data. I'll just connect to my one and show you it so people will be familiar. So if I just connect, most of our NHS customers connect to our data using the Azure version, and every one of them, every single user we have access to the same data. So we have everyone gets their own login just so that we can monitor who's accessing what, but it's all the same data anyway. While I wait for that to load, I'll go to the Snowflake one. I use Snowflake because it's faster, a lot faster. So Snowflake is a cloud database where companies use Snowflake to put their data and access data, and companies like me share data. So I've got all my data, all my facts and dimensions data in there, and other customers follow the link in that page I was showing earlier, which we'll send out to everyone to get access to it. So that's Snowflake. There's other ones. There's Databricks is another cloud database. PostgreSQL. It's a cloud database. I don't know how else to explain it. Any other questions? Yes, Jackie. Oh, you were just putting them up. Is there any data ethics or other issues? Right, good question. There is no data in here that isn't openly available data. So every single data set in here is already open, and there's no patient identifiable data or anything. In fact, on our website, we've got a list of every data set we have. So and you can see where we're getting our data from. So disabled employment, right? So go to the link. That's the data in our database is coming from these files in here, and this is all open data, right? So if I just show you this file, for example, that's from the government website under the Open Government License. This is the sort of data we're loading. Wait for it to open. So this actually helps me explain the purpose of why you would use us rather than doing it yourself, right? Oh, this is a classic, right? So this data, it's not too badly formatted, but it is a bit, well, I mean, you can see it's like you've got the years down the side here, and then you've got the metrics here, and then the totals, and it's split over loads and loads and loads of pages. It's an absolute nightmare. So rather than using it in there, you'd want to use it in our database. So if I just load it in ours, select staff from employment, to get the name of that table again. Oh, that's it, disabled employment, right? Employment dot, and then just pick the table you're interested in, whatever it is. And as you can see, we've taken the data from that Excel file, those Excel files, from these files, right, and put them in these tables. As you can see, that these are just the public data. So as far the IG is not relevant. Any more questions? I can show you some horrible data if you like. I'm going to show you.
We've got a question about how often the data is updated and if you've got an update schedule for that.
Yeah, so data is updated every day as soon as it comes out. We have a whole special table to see that. There's a whole schema, in fact, release details that is like the metadata for the table. So you would probably be interested in, for when data's come out, you would want this one. So you can see when data was last updated. So if I just do order by date of transfer, so you can see from that recently these tables are updated. So that's just the dimensions tables. There'll be new data today, because there's also facts, which is like statistics. Here we go. All of it. Oh no, that's that same one again. Anyway, yeah. So in the release details, so I'm well aware of the fact that you'll just end up watching me just writing SQL code, which would be a bit silly. This is the one that you'd want to use. I've delegated everything to my whole team, so I don't actually do it myself anymore. Well, this table, when it's finished loading, will tell you what's been updated lately, and then you'd use that to work out what's come out today. So yeah. Someone's asked a question. It's just disappeared. Someone asked the question, can you link this to patient data? No. Yeah. Well, yes and no, right? So you can't link to patient data directly, but you would link your patient data to our database. So your patient data will have things like the GP practice code, for example. So if we just have a look at that one. Right, let's just have a look at that one, right? So this table has every ODS code across the NHS. I've just realised, because I know so it was just going a bit slow there, wasn't it? So if I pick say a GP practice, so let's do where ODS code equals D81001. So you might have you'll have your patient data with the GP code that they belong to, and you would link that to this database in our table in our database, to then find out that practice is this name and it's commissioned by this PCT or CCG or whatever. So if you want to find the current one, you'd do where operational end date is null. So you can get the current. This is all in the videos that are on our YouTube, by the way. So say you had a patient belonging to D81001, you'd link to this table to see that practice is operated by NHS Cambridgeshire Peterborough, partner to CAM Medical PCN, and commissioned by this one. And then you might go up the chain a bit and bring up O6H to have a look at that. So you can go up another level to find out that O6H is located in the geography of NHS Cambridgeshire and Peterborough, that kind of thing. You see, so we don't have any patient identifiable data, but you would append our data to yours to make proper use of it. Right, I think that answers those questions. You couldn't link directly to patient level data by NHS number. No, because the only data we have in this database is public data. So we've got all the GP practices and like where the address of the GP practice and the ICB that the practice belongs to. So you guys have the NHS numbers and the patient data. We just have the public reference data. And our customers use their own data and then join it to our data. In fact, that's why I do this course where I'm teaching NHS people how to do joins, because I need to teach people how to do that sort of work so they can actually use my data. Really. Yeah. I wondered if you have much Welsh data. There is actually, but the data we have in our database is driven by the forum that I was showing you earlier, right? I'll just have a look at that again. So whenever anyone has a data set that we don't currently have that people want adding, they ask for it here. So if you were to start using our service and there were some Welsh data sets that you wanted us to add that we didn't already have, you'd start a new topic. Let's come up with one, right? Let's imagine Wales NHS data. Okay, so let's imagine. I'm just going to pick something at random here. Hospital data, COVID-19 data hub. God knows there was a lot of data when that was coming out. We had to work Christmas Day just to load data. I thought, honestly, do we really think we're saving lives if I'm just counting the deaths on Christmas Day? Right. Again, I'm going to end up spending a bit of time just faffing about looking at stuff here. If there was a data set on this website that you wanted us to add, you would copy the link to it and you'd put it in our forum as a new data request like these guys have. So if I just show you one from the past. No, that's not one. Okay, yeah, the unemployment figures, right? So someone came on our website and said, can you load this data? And then one of our team said, well, can you give us a link? And they said, sorry, here's the link. Can you load the data from this website? And then we'll add it, right? So have we got anything from Wales at the moment? I know we've got lots of stuff from in COVID, for example. So I immediately see it though. There's thousands of tables in here, see, so we'd have to actually have a bit of a play to find it all. But yeah, I mean, we've got some Welsh data, but it's purely driven by people asking for it. And then we'd
Can I ask a follow-up to that before the next question in the chat? In terms of if someone's requesting data, the kind of time and how long it takes to get that available and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great question, actually. So that is fundamentally what we do. All we're doing all the time is adding new data sets and maintaining existing data sets. And typically our current turnaround, if you say it's not urgent, it will be a few months. If you say it is urgent, it will be a few days. Unless it's a huge data set, because some data sets take like 6 weeks of solid work for us to do. And it has to go through massive amounts of test scripting to make sure that the quality is extremely high. So, it's also dependent on how hard the data set is. Some of the source data we deal with is an absolute nightmare. Are you the only company pulling all public data?
Sorry, there's one before that, just before you do that one, about what other sectors outside health you house for cross-sector working.
Right, I'm really glad you asked that, because actually that's something I should have put in my slides. I actually we do nearly all health, but my aim is to do everything across all of government. In fact, one of our international customers has asked us to start working on loading all the health data across Europe. My absolute ultimate aim is all public data in one database. Like Snowflake has unlimited, there's no limit, no upper limit to how much data you can put in there. So I always give an example, right, of why this would be such a good idea and why we're doing it. Let's imagine, you know how, it's not a nice one, but it's the only one I can think of really. You know how in the US there's a problem with gun violence, and in Canada, relatively, there isn't. Now, both countries have the same, roughly similar gun ownership, but there's massive differences in gun crime, right? If you wanted to understand that, you would not only need all the gun crime statistics from both countries, you'd need the mental health statistics, you'd need population numbers, you'd need income deprivation, you'd need employment figures. There's such a massive amount of data sets you'd need, it would take a year to pull the data together, only to then do that one project. Whereas if we've done it all for all kinds of people needing all kinds of different things, then it's worth it. So in terms of getting data initially from across the UK government, we're already doing that because several people in the NHS have already asked us to load data that was surprising, like all the police data. So we've got all the stop and search data and the organisation of budget responsibility, because NHS Green needed us to load that, and also all the energy data. So our aim is we want to do all data. All you have to do is ask for it and it gets added, and there's no cost to asking for it. So hopefully that answers that. Are you the only company pulling all public data in one place like this? Yes, we are, or at least we are the only one I know of. We've even got companies, international companies, that ask us to load data because we're the only ones that they know of that can do it. We have access to the data currently. Yep, you do. I was wondering if you publish the metadata for each data set so we know what each field refers to. Oh, that's a good question, actually. Not really, no. What we do have is where the data comes from. So yeah, I mean, that is a good one, actually. Where the data comes from, right? So I'll show you this. Right, so this table lists every table and the website where it comes from. So like this one, NHS maternity HES method of delivery by birth status, that comes from here. And you would go to this source to have a look at the source data to understand it. We also have, so if you wanted to know what file a particular row of data came from, so let's if we queried this, select star from this particular table. Right. So on the right here, there's this column here, audit key. So if I wanted to know where did this particular row of data come from, you would then query this. And that tells you the exact file that the data came from, and also what website we got the file from. And we actually have a copy of the file. So if you wanted a copy of the file, you can get that as well. So the only purpose of our service is there's a huge amount of work in getting data from the horrendous source files into the database and making sure it's all done correctly so that you can then use it. And we do that bit. What about private sector data, example, independent providers of health and associated healthcare? Yeah, they're all in there because that is all in the that's in ODS. So I'll just show you now, actually. So select star from ODS API dot. There we go. I mean, if it's public data, we can add it. If we haven't already got it, we can add it. That is the rule. If I just do the different roles, So, right, yeah. No privates in here somewhere. Oh, it's independent, isn't it? Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so like there's these ones. So if I just sort of queried on them, where well, there's a bunch of independent sector health organisations. I've just done the top 10 there. For the definitions of each field, you would need to use the links in the source. Yeah, you would need, right. So the aim of the whole point of the service. So we some of our customers are actual value added providers like IQVIA, right? They take data from our, and Dr. Foster's as well. They take data from our database, and then they add all the useful information. They sort of use it to load into a system that they develop to do nice, useful stuff. Like the Department of Health, they have a system called the DHSC Analytics Core service from memory. They pull all the data from our service and then present it in a useful fashion with all the descriptions and everything that everyone needs. So I hope that helps. So the only thing you're saving by using our service is you don't have to have someone taking data from the source files and putting them into the database yourself, because we've already done it. But while I'm waiting for more questions, I thought I might just show you something quickly. An example of some horrendous data. So this is not only do we have an enormous amount of test scripting to make sure that the data quality is extremely high, we also, and that's when there's no problems with the source data. We often have problems with the source data, and I just took some screenshots. So for example, this file here says it's for 2001, 2002, and yet it's actually, and yet according to that, it's 2000 to 2001. This one says it's 2009, 10 April to June, but it's actually 2008, 9. There's things like that that only a company like mine that's dedicated to doing this can actually deal with. And there's a classic one here. You'll all know about, or a lot of the people working in NHS will know about RTT. You know, the 18-week wait target. I don't know if you noticed, but in September 2014, 1 week in the middle of the month, they decided to make this last column on the end switch from being numbers of patients weighing more than 4 hours to numbers of patients weighing between 4 and 12 hours, right? And it's only because we have our test scripts that are spotting that the header row has changed that led to us handling that issue. Otherwise, especially with them being relatively lower numbers, that data would have carried on going with a different definition without anyone knowing it had a different definition. In terms of, right, what's the next question? Is it expensive? So to get access to the data, you just need, you can get access for free for
I think, I hope it's not just me, but there's a frozen Philippe. So I'm hoping that that will be a short-term issue. Feel free to add any additional questions in whilst we're waiting, and I will ask them again once he's back.
Jessica, can you hear me still though?
Oh, I can hear you again.
Yeah. All right,
I
cool.
think you're unfrozen as well now. Sorry.
Right,
It was
that's good.
during that expense question that
Right,
you've just
right.
frozen.
Okay, that's no problem. Right, so if I just take you to that to cover that bit, that's dead easy. So on our website, on the Facts and Dimensions website, there's a link to G-Cloud 14, and you can see there, that's the cost. It's slightly higher than that for ICBs, but that's the one. If you're just a hospital, that's it. 25 grand for everyone across the whole hospital, access to everything and unlimited requests for new stuff. So there's that. Oh, yeah, by the way, when I mentioned about the training, so I've developed the training for doing teaching people how to do joins. I've also developed, starting last month, another training thing called SQL Analytics, where I teach people how to do sum, min, max, average, group by, those other basic SQL Analytics. And I've based that on this. So I've actually, just as an aside, I've actually lost 5 stone in weight in the last 15 months. And I use this system, NutriCheck, to record everything I eat and all my exercise. And it's brilliant at perfectly managing my weights, because 3,500 calories equals a pound in weight. Now, the reason I mention it is that I've put all this data over 18 months into the facts and dimensions database, into this table here. I'll just load it up now. 3 tables. So all my diet summary data is in here, right? And all my weights from my digital scales are in there as well. And I've developed a analytics course for those ones that pass my joined course, where they learn how to do SQL analysis, sum, min, max, average, and all the rest of it, using that data. So I thought I'd mention that as well.
Can I ask a question? So
yeah.
you've got that free trial available. Just a bit of a question about how long that's for, but also what kind of almost case study would you suggest would be, the best way to really understand how valuable this might be in that time frame?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good question. Now, I do need to sort of put the time together to put together a case study. What I've been doing so far, whenever anyone asks me that, is every customer we have, and they're all listed on my website, they're all happy to answer questions privately as well, without us involved. So this is our list of customers. Anyone on there, certainly if you know anyone on there, if you want me to put you in touch with them, they will happily chat to you about how they use the database. But fundamentally, you all need ODS codes and all the lookup codes, the ICD-10, all the rest of it, and for benchmarking all the stats for all kinds of different reasons. So I don't know. You'd have to. Yeah, I never answer that question very well, because I think I need to put together a case study, really. All right, what is AnalystX? So AnalystX was put together by NHS England. This is it here, right? It's on this is their website, analystx.uk. I access it through my website. I go on SQL training on my website. I go to future.nhs.uk, which has an AnalystX area. That is the organisation developed by NHS England that primarily was put together to develop the national competency framework, but it's also just as a community for all us NHS analysts to meet, and we use this future.nhs.uk website to do that. Jessica, and you might want to add to that.
Yeah, I just wanted to add. So I asked Filipe before this. So I'm in Wales, based in Wales, and we don't use futures as much as they do in England. However, you can still access futures. The wales.nhs.uk address allows you access into this, and Filipe said that these courses would be available through that. And I think a lot of the detail, and certainly the resources that are on here are also available across the UK, rather than just in England or in any one organisation or region. So I think that's a useful thing to know in general too.
Another question. So what will happen as NHS England is going to be obsolete? I've actually recently had confirmation they've renewed it again for 2 more years, and the license will be taken over by whoever takes over NHS England's responsibilities, probably Department of Health. but it will carry on anyway. But we don't just have a license with NHS England. We have licenses with individual hospitals, etc. And they've got everyone, thankfully, for me, the service we provide is obviously extremely important because despite all the cuts, every one of our customers has renewed their license. So they've found the budget to renew what we do. I think it's because it's pretty fundamental to what they do in the team, probably. Thankfully for me.
I guess a question from me. So in some organizations, there are kind of smaller teams of analysts, and that kind of license price might be quite high. Are there any scope to kind of do a bit more of a regional license to cover a few organizations?
Yes, there is. Yeah. So what I generally do for that, I came up with an arbitrary sort of threshold where multiples can come together and get one license. In terms of the commissioning side, the threshold is million population, right? So that's that. And on the provider side, the threshold is £1 billion turnover revenue, right? So United, the Birmingham hospitals is the only one that pays double because their turnover is 1.5 billion or something like that. Essentially, they're buying a license for like 15 hospitals. And the reason I do that is, of course, because I don't want the NHS to go, I know, let's have NHS England Foundation Trust and call every hospital a site and suddenly I only have one customer. So yeah, but yeah, I've had customers where they've joined together and become and develop one business intelligence team to cover the sites. Like Frimley is actually Frimley and Wexham and Heatherwood. They share one license, for example.
And there's a question about whether CSUs are covered under the. Oh, you already,
Yeah, CSU. You already have a full. Now, I should mention CSUs and NHS England. Anyone on the, I did notice in the list of people joining the call that are from CSUs, they were asking to learn about it, and I thought you already have a license. I think what I've found often happens is you guys are getting data through what's called from what I've been told is the NCDR and UDAL. Anyone in NHS England or the commissioning support units will know what I mean by the NCDR and UDAL. That any data to do with public statistics comes from us. So there's a team at NHS England that take data from our database, puts it into the NCDR and UDAL for you guys in the CSUs to use. So you already do have access. You probably just didn't realize it because it's under a different name. So yeah.
I guess one question, sorry, I keep going back with more questions. But question I have about that SQL training. So it's quite a specific, you've mentioned the SQL specifically looking at more joins and then the analytics course. Are there other bits of training you're planning to provide or that you provide, or is that?
No, that is it. I do that in my spare time. Like, not that I have any spare time, but we've all got to give a bit to the Analytics community because it's brilliant, and that's what I give. That's as much as I can give. However, there is actually there is an additional thing I do. So I have found the training is more effective if I actually do it in person. So occasionally I do go to the site to do the training in person. If you've got like 4 or 5 people in your area that wants the training, it is more effective that way. All I ask for in return is that the upper management team will put up with me giving a demo of my service in the lunch break, so that then it's kind of like semi-marketing, which is something I can obviously afford to do because that's what I'm supposed to do as a business owner, as well as training, which is a voluntary thing. But it is definitely more effective. But the main reason is that everyone in the actual classroom helps each other through the time, whereas on Teams you can't really help each other. So I'm more than willing to come over and do that for free. It's still free. I like it as well. It's like pre-COVID days when we used to actually travel to see people instead of doing it all on Teams.
Any other questions? I can't see any more in the chat for now. Is there anything else anyone wants to ask? Or anything else you want to to say, Philippe?
No, just take a screenshot of this screen now I'm sharing, and to be honest, I said earlier that I would share links. Well, these are the links I was going to share. So if you take a screenshot, you've got it all. And get in touch.
And there's one more question about access to the SQL training.
Yeah, so for the SQL training, if you go to the NHS Futures website, so I'll just put the link in the chat. You might need to sign up to future.nhs.uk, but that's how you do it. You go on there and then you just look down the calendar list. So you see I'm booked up until November now, and pick a date and then just private message me, or people often just write in the comments saying, hi, could you book me in for whatever? And I'll just say, yeah. And I'll do this forever. I'll do that even after I've retired. I just, even though that's a hell of a long way away, but because I enjoy it.
Love you. Thank you very much. Really interesting to see what facts and dimensions can provide. I'm sure everyone will be having a little look back and having a think about how they might be able to use that. And thanks for everyone for joining. Just another reminder before we go that there are a number of upcoming branch meetings, lunch and learn next week on data visualization, and this session's going to be repeated in a month if there's anyone who couldn't join who think would want to see the same content, ask more questions, that kind of thing. So please come along or send others. And again, the recording of this session will be saved in the members hub after this session. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much, everyone. We'll sign off now, I guess.